Seriously? Hey guys, and welcome to yet another top fives video with me, 6 Plus Stevo. And this one I'm very excited about because we're talking about Shiny Gubbinz. And I'm a bad moon. I like me some Shiny Gubbinz. I like a bit of bling. And yeah, so this is right up my alley. And yeah, the Shiny Gubbinz section of this book is one of my favourite parts of the book. And it's a part of the codex in which we have still got a lot of creativity and a lot of customization open to us. It increases like the scope for conversions and kit bashes, and for most Orc players that is just like a real draw to the faction. And it's a great way to add some much needed character to your war boss. Your war boss sets the whole kind of theme for your army. The boys and the knobs and stuff are going to follow in his stead, and he's going to lead by example and, like I say, set the whole kind of vibe and feel and character of your faction. And Shiny Gubbins are a great way to add some personality and represent that character on your war boss. You know, for example, a goth war boss is going to be bad-tempered and brutal and bloodthirsty, and yeah, so the boys and the knobs are going to follow in that example, and giving him some sort of war gear and stuff which represents that, some sort of brutal close combat war gear, really helps represent that. In the same sense, a freebooter captain is going to be sort of self-serving and only out for glory and fame and riches, and probably have the snazziest gun that teeth can buy. And yeah, that's another great way to give that war boss something like that to help represent that character. And yeah, it's fantastic. The Shiny Gubbins section really does open up that scope for creativity, customization, and adding a little bit of personality to your warlords. So yeah, that is why we're going to be doing our top fives Shiny Gubbins. So without further ado, let's get into it and see what comes in at number 5. Okay, in at number 5 we have a personal favourite of mine, and it only just made the grade. The top 4 on this list were quite easy choices for me, but number 5, I had a few different choices sitting there. I was reading the stats and weighing up the pros and cons of each, and it was a tough choice, but just squeezing in is the Dead Shiny Shooter. Like I said, a personal favourite of mine, because I'm a bad moon. I like me some Dakka, and there's not really many better ways to represent this than this Shiny Gubbins. Incredibly characterful, especially if you're, like I say, a bad moon or a freebooter. But let me just go over what it says here about the Dead Shiny Shooter. Rumoured to have been made by Big Mech Buzzgob, the Dead Shiny Shooter is a double-barrelled brute packed full of Dakka. The gun kicks out a deafening storm of hot lead, much to the enjoyment of the Orc pulling the trigger, and its volume of fire is so great that even the most inaccurate greenskin can land a respectable number of hits. Model with custom shooter only. The Dead Shiny Shooter replaces the bearer's custom shooter and has the following profile. Range 18 inches, type Assault 12, Strength 4, AP -1, damage 1. So yeah, it's cheap because a custom shooter is what, 4 points I believe, and or is it 2 points now? Let's just take a look at that quickly. Custom shooter is 2 points, so that's an absolute steal for your war boss, and a massive pro to this bit of Shiny Gubbins. So yeah, for 2 points you can have the Dead Shiny Shooter, but this is a bit better than your bog standard custom shooter, because Assault 12 shots is just lovely. A respectable range of 18 inches, and it gets the AP of -1, which doesn't sound like much, but it can make a lot of difference. It really can, especially over the custom shooter, which doesn't have an AP at all. So 12 shots combined with the Daka rule can land you, like it said in the description, a respectable amount of hits. You're still going to be firing on your war boss's ballistic skill of hitting on 5s, or if he advances, hitting on 6s. But like I say, all those 6s, getting them exploding dice and extra shots, and it can be a nice little infantry killer. And it's a nice way to tenderize and soften up the target before you wail in with your power claw or your big chopper and finish them off. But yeah, I've got a lot of love for the Dead Shiny Shooter. It's a cool piece of war gear. The reason it's only number 5 on the list is, well, because I think there's 4 better options in terms of competitiveness. But in terms of just the fluff and the lore of it and what it represents, for me, it's probably kind of number 1, really, because it's just a big fuck off gun that fires a shitload of Daka, and there can be nothing more bad moon than that. And that is why the Dead Shiny Shooter comes in at a respectable number 5. So let's see what comes in at number 4. Okay, in at number 4 is a piece of Shiny Gubbinz that doesn't actually come from the Ork Codex. It comes from this, Vigilus Defiant. What do you know? There is some good to come out of this book for the Orks. And for those of you that watched my video talking a little bit about one of the detachments in this book, you'll know that I'm not a huge fan of this book. It was a bit of a disappointment to me. But there is one piece of Shiny Gubbinz in here which I think is very cool and quite powerful. And it is in the Cult of Speed Specialist Detachment. And that piece of Shiny Gubbinz is Grimm's Snazstrike. Cool name. And let's read you the description of this piece of war gear. A notorious speed boss named Grimm led his cult of speed into Gork's Grimm, the name the Orks gave to the Great Rift. Finding themselves upon a strange and twisted world, the Orks under his command waged war against the demonic inhabitants, revelling in the slaughter that followed. As the dust settled, Grimm was nowhere to be found, but his war trike was recovered without a dent or a scratch upon it, and surprisingly, a glossy new red paint job. Many speed bosses have since taken Grimm's Snazstrike for their own, and even when they fall in battle, the Snazstrike is inevitably recovered, still just as shiny. Death Killer War Trike only. Add 1 to the bearer's toughness characteristic. In addition, the bearer gains a 5+ invulnerable save. So it is purely for the Death Killer War Trike, so it loses some points for that because it's restrictive. You know, obviously you can't have it on a standard war boss. It's a bike. It makes sense. But this buffs a already impressive HQ choice to something quite a bit tougher and a bit more resilient. Like I say, it adds 1 to the bearer's toughness and gains a 5+ invulnerable save. And when we look at the stats of the Death Killer War Trike, we can start to see just how impressive this is. So I'll just flip back here to the HQ section. And where are you? Death Killer War Trike. Here we go. So he's already got a toughness of 6. So this buffs him up to a toughness of 7. He's got a respectable 4+ save. He's got 8 wounds. And like I say, buffing that toughness up to 7 and then getting that 5+ invulnerable save does make this guy nice and resilient. But where you can really have a bit of fun with the customization and stuff and buffing this guy, if you really want to make this guy tough, you can give him the Warlord trait of, where is it? Flipping through the pages. Ardor's Nails. Given the Ardor's Nails Warlord trait, which buffs his toughness by a further 1, now he's on toughness 8, and that's going to make him very resilient indeed. Now, there's not many weapons that are going to be wounding him on any more than a 4+ or 5+. You know, strength 4 weapons are going to be wounding him on a 6+. That's going to make him really, really resilient to small arms fire. And even strength 5, strength 6, strength 7 weapons, 5+ to wound. He's going to be very hard to shift, especially with those 8 wounds. And a 5+ invulnerable save. So even if the enemy is firing things like rockets and las cannons and stuff at him to try and pick him off, he's still got a respectable invulnerable save to fall back on. And that invulnerable save in itself is very handy for a Deathkiller Wartrike, because he's not going to be, or very unlikely to be, within the range of a Big Mech's custom force field. So he's going to be generally out at the front leading the charge and out on his own, and that's going to, so resilience in that scenario is going to be very important. So yeah, I think that just combined with the Warlord trait and on an already impressive Deathkiller Wartrike makes for a very cool piece of Shiny Gubbinz indeed, and very characterful, especially if you are got an Evil Sun's army. Then, you know, Speed Freak's army, this really does fit the bill beautifully. So that is why it is at number 4. So let's see what comes in at number 3. Okay, in at number 3 is another personal favourite of mine, and if I was just doing this just for my favourites and not for competitive reasons, I would have probably put this at number 1 or number 2, probably number 1 actually. And this piece of Shiny Gubbinz is none other than the Gunshot Thunderbuss. The name alone is awesome, but let me read you the description. Requiring an entire chest of teeth to be loaded into its breech before each shot, the Gunshot Thunderbuss Worky Gubbinz plates its unconventional ammunition in gold before firing it in an inescapable cone of fanged death. Not only can this madcat weapon sweep away swathes of enemy with every shot, it also fires a literal fortune of teeth every time, proclaiming its owners obscene wealth in the process. Bad Moon's model with a custom shooter, combi weapon with Scorcher, or combi weapon with rocket launcher only. The Gunshot Thunderbuss replaces the bearer's custom shooter or shooter profile with the following profile. Range 12 inches, type heavy 2d6, so potential of 12 shots, strength 5, AP -1, damage 1, and it has the ability, this weapon automatically hits its target. So there's a lot of good to be said about this piece of wargear. So it's exclusive to Bad Moons, so sorry other lesser clans, you don't have access to this. But this is so Bad Moon, this is just screams Bad Moon, and hence why I converted my Big Mech to have one of these, because I just think it's cool as hell. I'll pop a link to up in one of the corners here to that video if you want to see my Big Mech conversion with the Gunshot Thunderbuss. But yeah, there's a reason why I converted him with this, and we'll go into it now. So first off, this replaces a custom shooter or combi shooter, unlike the Dead Shiny shooter. And but this only replaces the shooter part of the weapon. So if you're going with a combi shooter, you still get the rocket launcher and or Scorcher in at the same time as well. For my one, I went with the Scorcher, so I effectively get 3d6 shots when I'm within a certain range. Now it does only have the range of 12, it is a fairly close range, but for a flamer type weapon, a 12-inch range is really nice. That means if you are deep striking and stuff, you are going to be within range with this thing, so that's pretty, that can be pretty dangerous. And strength 5 is very impressive. AP -1 for a weapon that automatically hits is nice. And I just think it's cool. You have the potential with this thing to cause a lot of damage, because we know Ork shooting is not the best in terms of reliability. with this thing automatically hitting the targets. It's very nice. It is a random number of shots. You know, you could roll snake eyes and just have 2 auto hits. Even with just 2 auto hits, you're likely to do some damage. But yeah, if you're rolling good and you get high on those auto hits, you're going to really ruin your opponent's day. You've got the Overwatch as well. They're going to be very hesitant to charge a war boss with this weapon. And I just think it's cool. I just think it's really, really cool. The whole bit of fluff behind it, where it's, you know, a big hopper loaded with gold-plated teeth that it just fires out like a shrapnel gun. Yeah, it's awesome. It really, really is awesome. It's like a Grotzuka on steroids. And I absolutely love it. And it fits the term Shiny Gubbinz perfectly. But yeah, that is only number 3 on the list. So let's find out what's beaten 2 of my favourites to come in at number 2. Okay, and number 2 is a Shiny Gubbin that I am incredibly envious of, because I don't play this clan, and this is a clan exclusive piece of Shiny Gubbins. But it's when I read this, I was like, oh, I wish I could have that, because it's good. It's good. And it is Morgog's Thinking Cap. Looted from a Scholar Progenium, sorry if I've butchered that word, training facility, this tangle of electrodes was incorporated into a helmet on the orders of Bloodaxe warboss Morgog. Upon donning the headgear, Morgog was bombarded by fragments of what he realised were strategies and tactics. Through the crackling Umi voices and flashes of imagery were confusing, the warboss was able to make use of the concept his new thinking cap imparted. Soon his foes would learn that the only thing more dangerous than a savage 300-pound brute is a savage 300-pound brute with a plan. Bloodaxe model only. If the bearer is your warlord, you can generate a second warlord trait for them. If the bearer is not your warlord, generate a warlord trait for them. Note that the bearer is only regarded as your warlord for the purposes of that warlord trait. The same warlord trait cannot be generated for both the bearer and your warlord. Yeah, this is great, because the warlord traits in this book are really good, or at least some of them are really, really good. And the fact that you can have 2 warlord traits with this on the same warlord, you have the option, so you can put this on another character and then they can generate a warlord trait. So you can have 2 characters on the table with warlord traits, which in itself is very powerful. They can't be the same, but to be able to have 2, because these warlord traits, they can be hard to choose between sometimes. And who knows, in the future I may do a top 5 warlord traits one, which, yeah, I think that's pretty much a given. I'm going to do that. But they are hard to choose between, and being able to choose 2 of them is really, really nice. I suppose the only downside to this is that you are effectively losing a bit of Shiny Gubbins, if you see what I'm saying, because yeah, this Shiny Gubbins gets you access to warlord traits, but you're kind of losing the ability to have a cool piece of wargear or an upgraded piece of wargear. But I think that's, for what you're gaining, is possibly very much worth it. And to have 2 warlord traits on the same warlord, I think, is the option I would go with, just to make a guy that's just super hench and super powerful. And when you look at, you know, some of the combinations you could do in here, so you could do the Might is Right and have +1 to your warlord's strength and attacks characteristic. That's going to make him pretty brutal in combat. And then you could add Brutal but Cunning, so you can re-roll hit rolls in the fight phase for your warlord, and in addition add 1 to the damage characteristic of your warlord's melee weapons. Suddenly you have got an absolutely devastating powerhouse in combat there. He's got +1 strength, +1 attack, he is re-rolling hit rolls, and he's getting +1 damage with his weapons. That's pretty nice for a nice simplistic go. Or if you want to keep along the lines of the clever thinking Bloodaxe warboss, you could go with the Bloodaxe trait of, if your warlord is on the battlefield, roll a dice for each command point you spend, and on a 6+, that command point is immediately refunded. And something like Cunning but Brutal, so he has the ability to teleport in D3 friendly units. No, not teleport in, sorry. What we say? At the start of the first battle round, you can remove your warlock to D3 units from backwards and set up again as described in the deployment section of the mission. Alright, so it's not teleporting them in, but you can take them off the table and redeploy them. So you can really come at your opponent with some blood axe type tactics here. But yeah, there's a lot of scope here to double up on your warlord traits and make a warlord that is really something quite special. And that is why the thinking cap comes in at number 2. So before we get to my number 1 choice for Shiny Gubbinz, I think there's a couple of bits of wargear where we want to give an honourable mention to. One that I want to talk about, which very nearly got on this list, is Brog's Buzz Bomb. Very cool name, snakebite exclusive, and it's a grenade. Runt boss Brog was the genius behind the now infamous Buzz Bomb. By building an oversized stick bomb around an entire buzzer squig hive, he created an unstable device that could be flung at the enemy to send enraged buzzer squigs all through their lines. Only once the squigs have settled down post-battle and returned to their stick bomb home can the weapon be carefully gathered up, usually by unfortunate grot volunteers, and pumped full of fungus smoke, putting the buzzer squigs to sleep until their fury is needed again. Snake white model only. Brog's Buzz Bomb has the following profile: range 6 inches, grenade 3d6, strength 5, AP 1, damage 1. It has the abilities of this weapon can only be used once per battle, so that is a bit of a downside, that it's a one use only, and automatically hits its target. After all of its attacks have been resolved, you can immediately select another enemy unit within 6 inches of the target and resolve 2d6 attacks against it with the same weapon. So the reason this didn't make the list was because it's quite situational. You may not get the chance to use this because it's only got a 6-inch range. But 3d6 auto hits, strength 5, AP -1, damage 1. It's very nice. And if your war boss is right in the thick of the action and there's multiple units there, he just gets to do it again with another 2d6. So if you get the situation right and the timing right, you can effectively fling out one time 5d6 auto hits. It's pretty nice. But yeah, like I said, it's one use only, situational, and I think just the amount of games that you play where you wouldn't get the chance to use this is the reason why this didn't quite make the grade. The other one I want to talk about is the Fixer Uppers. Originally the tools of Death Skull Maniac Frazdak, it is claimed that the Fixer Uppers can repair any wagon, no matter how badly jinked it might appear. In typically orky fashion, the sheer belief that these tools can work wonders often seems to mean they do just that. Death Skull's model only. The bearer gains the Big Mechaniac ability. If the bearer already has the Big Mechaniac ability, the target of the ability regains 3 lost wounds instead of D3 each time it is used. So this is another really nice piece of wargear, and for me, Bad Moons, and I like to field a lot of Death Dreads and cans and stuff. It's a bit of wargear that I would like to have access to, but it is Death Skull exclusive. But yeah, it's very cool. So you could put this on your big mech to make him incredibly reliable big mech. So no D3 wounds regained. It would just be a flat 3 every time, which makes him really reliable and good. Or put it on a war boss, and now your war boss has the benefits that come with being a war boss and the benefits that come with being a big mech, which is very cool indeed, especially if you're in an army that has a lot of vehicles and stuff, or your war boss himself is being transported in a battle wagon or a truck or something like that. It's quite a useful ability, and but like I say, it's just compared to some of the other ones, it didn't quite make the grade. But anyway, that's the honourable mentions out. What has come in at number 1? Okay, in at number 1, I wonder how many of you have guessed what it is already. I think it's pretty obvious at this point. Number 1 is the Killer Claw, and I don't think that's going to be much of a surprise to many people, because I think this is probably the most popular Shiny Gubbinz in the book. Not one that I use myself because I'm a bad moon and I like me some Dakka, but I cannot deny the awesomeness of this piece of Shiny Gubbinz. The Killer Claw. Orks himself fashioned this fearsome weapon from the blades of a soul grinder of corn. Thanks to its reputation for being dead killy, the baleful crimson glow emitted by the Killer Claw is yet to discourage any Orks from donning the fabled gauntlet. Model with Power Claw only. The Killer Claw replaces the bearer's Power Claw and has the following profile. Range melee, type melee, strength ×2, AP -3, damage a flat 3. And abilities, you can re-roll wound rolls for attacks made with this weapon. So, the Killer Claw, the Power Claw is already a fantastic piece of wargear. A lot of my knobs have Power Claws. It's the go-to melee weapon, and on a war boss it's even better. I'm just flipping through onto the stats of the Power Claw here. So yeah, the Power Claw is pretty much the same on the surface. It's strength ×2, AP -3, damage D3. So the Killer Claw has the advantage of being not D3 but a flat 3. However, the Power Claw, you've got to subtract 1 from your to hit roll, because it's a big unwieldy claw. So you go from hitting with a war boss, you go from hitting on a 2 to hitting on a 3, which can make a lot of difference when you're rolling a few 1s and 2s. Or on a knob, it's even worse. You go from hitting on a 3 to hitting on a 4. And Power Claws, you know, if you're rolling badly in the game, you can waste all that killy potential. With the Killer Claw, you don't have any negative modifiers at all. Your war boss is still hitting on a 2. So this impressively powerful weapon that does 3 damage, -3 AP, just hits on a 2, and that's just beautiful. That is just fantastic. And then also you can re-roll failed wound rolls for attacks made with this weapon. You're going to be wounding most things on a 2 anyway, so you're pretty much almost guaranteed to get your hits. You're almost guaranteed to wound. When you do that, you're causing 3 damage. This thing is brutal, absolutely brutal, and you can see why so many Ork players just see this as the obvious go-to choice. And I think for just sheer competitive terms, I can't argue with that. It does what it says on the tin. It's a killer. It really is. But when you combine this with certain warlord traits as well, it gets even better. Like I said, with the brutal but cunning warlord trait, where you can re-roll hit rolls in the fight phase for your warlord. So then with the Killer Claw, you're re-rolling your hits, you're re-rolling your wounds. And they're all pretty much hitting and wounding on 2s anyway, so he's just pretty much guaranteed to kill anything. Yeah, it's really, really good. And also that brutal but cunning, you add 1 to the damage characteristic of your warlord's melee weapon. So when you combine that, now he's damage 4. What needs to be said about that? He's just going to decimate anything he comes into contact with. It really is that good. Yeah, and this is coming from a bad moon player who's all about the Dakka a lot more than the melee. But even a die-hard bad moon like myself that usually scoffs at the lesser clans cannot deny the sheer brutality and killiness of the Killer Claw. And that is why the Killer Claw comes in at number 1. So there you go, guys. That's my top 5 Shiny Gubbinz. I've been very interested to hear what your top 5s are, and if you agree with my choices, or if you disagree with them, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments section below. I love reading all your comments. I try and reply to every single comment I get, and it's part of what makes making these videos so fun. If you've enjoyed this video anyway, guys, give it a big thumbs up. And if this is your first time on the channel, or you've not done it yet, please hit that subscribe button, because I've got loads more Orky goodness coming up in the pipeline soon, and a huge back catalogue now of videos covering tactics, other top fives, and well, all sorts of stuff really. But anyway guys, I am waffling as always. This is 6+ Stevo signing out. Oh, I forgot to include Head Whopper's Kill Chopper.